everyone, welcome back to Real Talk, Real Immigration. Today we're going to be talking about a hot topic going around right now in immigration. It's the Biden's new Parole-in-Place program. Whether you've heard of it already or if you haven't, buckle up because we're going to do a deep dive today. And I say deep dive about as deep as we can go because unfortunately the administration really hasn't released more details. The only new details that we have we'll talk about a little bit later in the program. We are waiting on the administration to actually publish what's called the Federal Register, which generally gives a lot more detail than what we have right now, which are the general requirements. So what is Biden's new PIP program? And we say PIP, that's short for Parole-in-Place. And we'll just kind of start with parole, which is the first word in the Parole-in-Place. And parole is, it's interesting to try to explain what parole is, but it's a way for the government to legally, without legally giving somebody status, an entry into the United States. And so when we say parole in place, it probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but in place means you don't have to leave the country to do this. And the reason why this is so beneficial to be paroled in place is because this program is meant to help a lot of people who may have entered the country unlawfully many years ago and are now married to U.S. citizen spouses who would otherwise have to undergo the consular process, which is an extremely long process, requiring a waiver and requiring them to have to leave the country and be separated from their family members. Now, many years ago, under President Obama, we did change the regulations allowing people to do their waivers from here, which are called stateside waivers. That in and of itself has created a lot of, has allowed a lot of families of U.S. citizen members to not have to be separated for long periods of time, but they're still having to leave the country. And so this new Parole-in-Place program is actually something to benefit the spouses of U.S. citizens. And is something that benefits in them in the sense that they're just going to be able to do the process from here and not have to leave the country. It doesn't benefit them any more than it would have in terms of getting your residency, right? Most of these people are already eligible for their residency. They're just being able to do a process that doesn't separate them from their family members and send them outside of the country. So I'm gonna let that'll kind of talk about some of the questions people have. When was it announced? Who will it affect? And just kind of go over that a little bit more.
So the program was announced June 17th. This date is actually very important because some of the eligibility requirements until this date. So it's gonna affect anyone who is married to a U.S. citizen as of June 17th, 2024. So when you talk about marriage, you do have to take into consideration the different laws in each state. So for example, here in Texas, they do recognize common law marriage. I would advise that you do seek possible legal counsel if you are not really understanding whether you could meet this common law marriage requirement that would backdate before June 17, 2024. Aside from that, or if you have a marriage license that was in effect as of June 17, 2024, this would also be considered a legal marriage.
And so just kind of going a little bit off of that, this program does require that you have been married as of June 17, 2024, right? And so, like Beto was saying, in cases of we're not sure because there's common law, you know, it is very important that, and a common law marriage here in the state of Texas, you would have to register it with your local department and in the county that you live. And it's basically called an informal marriage certificate, and basically you go in and you attest to the fact that you've been together for at least 6 months, you've held yourself out as being married, as husband and wife, and that it's as of such and such date, right? So lots of people out there living together, not married, not, you know, having kids, doing a lot of stuff. Some people, I mean, very much presenting themselves as married and doing their taxes together as married. So I think there's a lot of common law marriages out there in terms of this requirement, especially in the state of Texas. But it does get hazy when we haven't actually gone and done this paperwork ahead of time of these things happening. So I will say, just like as a practicing immigration attorney, these types of situations always give us headaches trying to figure out, because people are doing all the things of marriage but not actually married, or some of them are common law married. And so this is why it's so important, if you have this situation, please don't just run down to the county department and say, we're married, you know, or get a marriage license. Like, actually talk to an immigration attorney, because you know, when these situations are really kind of not clear cut, like you went, you got a marriage license, you got married before June 17th, you're going to be doing yourself a disservice just going and running and doing stuff that maybe have serious legal implications for you in the future. So, yeah, that's important.
Yes, very important. So aside from that, aside from being married as of June 17, 2024, you also have had to have continuous physical presence in the United States for at least 10 years. So you backdate, starting from June 17, 2024, you backdate 10 years, which would be June 17th of 2014. So, and that is, that requirement is something that's very important, because it will entail having to gather documentation that you have been present for these 10 years continuously.
And just kind of, again, going off of that note, when people come in to see me, this requirement is already something that we see in court cases or other types of cases, that we have to document that somebody's been either outside the country or inside the country continuously. This is probably going to pose a problem for some people. Again, if you know, we would highly urge people that are going to go through this process to seek legal counsel. What we did see during the new program, DACA, when it was announced, they also had a physical presence requirement. It wasn't as long as 10 years in some cases, but it was, you know, it was at least 5 years at the time that the program opened. So I will say that we did see people come into our office years after DACA had been open, whose cases had been denied because they did not provide sufficient evidence. Maybe they gave up because they were asking them for stuff. It's really important that this in particular be documented very well. So the way that I like to explain it to people in terms of continuous presence is, you don't have to have something for every day that you were here from June 2014 to June 2024. But it's continuous, so you do need to have more than one thing for every year. So I like to tell people, explain it this way. If you have something for January, maybe you should look for something for March or April, and then something for, you know, June, and something for November. So basically spread out over that year, you can prove that you were continuously here. For those of you that were younger in that time, it's going to be easier. You can get your school records. If you've gone to the doctor, you can get medical records. If you wear glasses and you have to go to the optometrist every year or every other year, get those records, dental records. The more official the record, the better, because I often get questions like, oh, can so-and-so just write a letter for me? Like, no. Not to say USCIS should not give it weight, but it's not going to be given as much weight as if you have official records. That's why it's important that you start gathering that now, and that you have somebody who knows what they're doing in terms of proving continuous presence, so that you will have a better chance at that. So what are some of the other requirements that the Biden administration has announced?
So one of the other requirements is that the applicant did not enter without status.
Did not enter with status.
Status, yeah. So pretty much if they entered illegally.
Yeah. And why is that important? Like, what is that? I mean, that seems kind of strange, right?
Yeah. So it's important because pretty much this program is so that they could technically give them a lawful entry.
So that they can do what?
So that they can eventually adjust their status here, because that is a requirement for adjusting status or being able to do your residency here in the United States, is having a lawful entry.
Right. And so that kind of leads into something that I wanted to explain, is that parole-in-place is not really something new. It's something that is already in existence for the family members of military members. And so the spouses of military members and the parents of U.S. Military service members, and this can be active or retired military service members. But basically we created this program, Parole-in-Place, so that they would not have to be serving our country and concerned about their spouse or their parents having to leave the country while they are trying to basically serve our country. So the Parole-in-Place program was meant to help them, give them legal entry without leaving the country, so that they could then be at their residency without having to leave the country. So again, the Parole-in-Place process is really just to help people be able to get their residency from within the country and not have to make the extra cost, take the extra time, and have to leave the country for a period of time, which often brings a lot of stress to the members of military members. So this program is basically an expansion of that program, right? And so we don't really have all the details and regulations to say who they're going to allow. So there are just like a lot of weird situations where people, have this issue or this issue, and I really have not been able to tell them, and we are not going to be able to tell them until the federal regulations come out, whether they're going to fit under this program. A lot of our experience with the Parole-in-Place program is based on the military Parole-in-Place program, which you can read about, you can look up. It's been in existence for many years, has helped many family members of military members of get their residency from within the country. So and then there's one more kind of requirement that I think is really, really important.
And so the last requirement is that the applicant has not had any disqualifying convictions and meets a favorable exercise of discretion. So unfortunately, we don't know what convictions are going to disqualify people from this. So there's only so much that we can say there, but
I think it's pretty safe to say that, if you've got some serious criminal convictions, probably not going to qualify under this process. We do have some experience in saying that, perhaps we saw under the DACA provisions that DWIs were disqualifying. That's a little interesting. I'll be curious to see what happens when the regulations come out, because DWIs actually don't disqualify you from getting your residency, right? So if the whole point of the program is for you to be able to get your residency, I send people outside the country through the consular process who have DWIs all the time to get their residency. So perhaps that won't be one that disqualifies people, but for any of my clients who have DWIs, I'm definitely telling them, like, you're gonna have to wait till these regulations come out. But if you have a squeaky clean situation, you haven't been in any criminal problems, for the most part, USCIS is going to exercise discretion. What does discretion mean? Who knows, right? It just basically means they look at your case and think it's a good case, pretty much. I won't get in, there's a lot more legal stuff that goes with that. But in general, if you don't have criminal convictions, you're probably going to be favorably granted this. If you have if you do have criminal convictions and it's not something that automatically disqualifies you, then there is what we call this like balancing act. So the more criminal stuff you have that doesn't disqualify you, the more good stuff you're going to have to submit. Again, honestly, if you have any criminal convictions and you want to get into this program, not really a good idea to decide this is a do-it-yourself project, right? I see a lot of people, and people can in some situations, but immigration is one of those things where a lot of times, you at least want to advise with an immigration attorney and make sure that your DIY is not going to go wrong, because the consequences are usually really, really serious. So for all you DIYs out there, just this FYI, don't take a chance if your spouse has any criminal convictions. Definitely talk to an immigration attorney about how you should prepare for the case. I think those are pretty much all of the eligibility requirements that we've been given up until this date. As soon as the Federal Register comes out, I'm sure I'll be posting another video to our Facebook page, maybe to YouTube as well, about what the actual Federal Register says. This is something I really think I want everybody to know. The government is already paroling people in and already has paroled a lot of people in. I hope that we'll have support for this program because these are the spouses of U.S. citizens. These are the parents of U.S. citizens. There's no reason that we should be ripping them out of their families and sending them back to their country to do a process and having to do all of this extra expense, all this extra time, when we're already giving parole to a lot of people. And so I hope that, you know, the spouses of U.S. citizens don't become the next, victim of whatever's going on in politics. I think this is something that we should all be able to come together and say, you know what, yeah, this is the right thing to do. Especially if you have people that are married to U.S. citizens, been here as long as they've been here, don't have certain criminal convictions or any criminal convictions, because I have a lot of clients who don't. Why would we not want to give them this benefit? A benefit they already qualify for anyways. So I hope that people keep that in mind. So we just want to talk to you about some of the newest updates about the application. I'm going to let Metal go over that.
So far what we know is that applications will be accepted starting August 19th, 2024. However, we do not know yet any more information about what the application is or what it entails. The only thing that we're kind of certain that they will require, as Belinda had discussed earlier, is the documentation for the 10 years of continuous physical presence. We also don't know what the application fee will be at this time as well.
Although, rumor alert, I've heard kind of rumors that it's going to be between like $600 to $1,000 for the application and the work permit. Some of you may not need the work permit. I don't know how that's going to work because some people may have DACA or they may have, some other type of work permit. So, again, talk to legal counsel about that.
And then that we know of also is that no applications will be accepted before August 19th, 2024. So if anyone has already started preparing an application for you, that should not be happening. So make sure that you are actually doing research about the attorneys that you are seeking to help you through this process.
Just kind of a side note, just to kind of clarify that. Like, we are already having people hire us to do the process, but we do not know 100% what the application is or the application fees. What we're really doing is preparing the evidence that's going to be necessary, which kind of leads into like, you need to prepare now. Preparing now is so important because number one, this process was created and instituted by the Biden administration. We all know the Biden administration will not be here next year. Who's going to be here? We don't know yet, right? That's going to happen in November. So this door of opportunity for this program may open and shut very quickly. So you may be left behind if you're not prepared because you're trying to wait to apply. We know this happens. We saw it with DACA, right?
Yes.
Like with DACA, it was open for a good, I would say, 5 years, and then it was closed. And it has not reopened since then. And so a lot of people were left out because they kind of just were on the fence or whatever. So if you're really interested in this program, definitely prepare now. What are some other tips that we have in terms of the future of the program?
So as Belinda was talking about, the DACA program window closed, which is something that can happen here due to litigation, which is pretty much someone doesn't agree with it, so they are going to try to block the program. And we saw it happen with DACA, and it's still closed and it's still in litigation, so it is possible that it can happen here. That is the risk of this program because it is new.
Right, and that's something we're advising all of our current clients because a lot of you may already have applications moving through the process. So that's another question that I think is pretty difficult for existing clients, is that we are speaking to each individual client about their case. Because a lot of our U.S. citizen spouses had already started petitioning, doing waivers, and are somewhere in the process of getting their residency for their spouses already. And so you need to seek legal advice. If you already have an attorney, talk to that attorney. Is this a program for me? I'm advising my clients that, if they're not too far advanced in the process, that they should really consider this program. But I am also telling them there's a lot of risk involved in terms of really financial risk, right? Because you may pay for all this and we may do all this work and we may submit it and it gets all stopped by litigation, which is what we've seen happen, in other programs. So I do want people to be aware that, this could possibly happen. But I do think that the benefits outweigh the risk, and so I am still advising clients to consider it if they really don't want to have to leave the country to go to the consulate. But side note, people go to the consulate all the time and get their residency anyways. So worst case scenario, something happens to this program, most of my clients are still in the process and moving along. So, we're going to continue to move those cases along towards residency anyways.
We really don't know what's going to happen in November during the presidential election. We don't know what where Kamala Harris stands yet on immigration, so we're not sure if this is something that she would still want to continue. Or what's going to happen there, and then also if we have a Republican presidency, we also don't know what is going to happen if that happens.
Well, I think if we have a Republican presidency, we probably do know what's going to happen. I think Trump has taken a hard line on immigration. I think he may take it further than he did his first administration. He has an experienced team who went through it in the first administration. I think we can look for some pretty hardline stuff. Now, could there possibly be some things thrown that benefit those who have been here for a long time, or the spouses of U.S. citizens, or leaving this program alone? Hopefully, right? There's a lot of hopes that even if he does win, that we're going to see some relief, at least for a segment of the immigrant population, but I don't know about that. And then under Kamala Harris, I don't think that we can just assume that she's going to do business like Biden did. I think that we do have a very broken immigration system. That's just the truth. Everybody can say what they want to, but as we talked about in our first podcast, and you can go back and listen to that, we have not had significant immigration change since 1996, which was under the Clinton administration. And I'm going to have to say, no, thank you, Clinton. You didn't, I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that was done. We're still seeing the damage of that years later. And so, we do need some significant immigration reform, whoever that is. And so, it's, as I tell my clients, it's hard to be an immigration lawyer, just so y'all know. The changing tides constantly, from change of administrations to everything that goes on in the day-to-day court system and immigration regulations and USCIS. It's pretty hard. And so having an experienced immigration attorney on your team, on your side, is really, really important to help you navigate through that. I think that if you've been on the fence, you've missed out on a really big opportunity under this presidency to get your case moving. But that's not to say that you can't still do something and shouldn't take advantage of moving forward on your case. So thank y'all all for watching. If you have any questions or requests for what you want us to talk about next, comment below. If you're on YouTube, please follow us on YouTube and subscribe and share this episode with someone you think that would benefit from this program, and also just someone who you feel like, hey, maybe we talk about immigration, and a lot of times as an immigration attorney, I'm like, a lot of people talk about immigration that don't really know the full scope of what's going on in immigration. So please follow us and send any questions you have, reach out, and again, thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time.